Yo, what is up guys? It's me, Zach Lee. So the NBA announced the full regular season schedule for all 30 teams yesterday. It's kind of like their way of teasing us. But you know you guys are ready for some more NBA action. Here's the schedule. Here are all the great games you have to look forward to watching. Now you just gotta wait 2 months to watch them. And one thing that I did find interesting about the schedule is that early in the summer, the NBA said that the season was going to start on October 15th. However, on the schedule, the first games don't take place till October 17th. So they actually pushed it back a couple of days. I guess it is worth it though, because those games on that day will be absolute fire. You got the Cleveland Cavaliers versus the Boston Celtics and the Houston Rockets versus the Golden State Warriors. Could very well be like a preview of the conference final, but I'm getting ahead of myself just by saying that. The NBA regular season hasn't even started yet. There's no way to know exactly what will go down, or is there? No, there isn't, but thanks to the guys over at Bleacher Report, we have something to talk about. They released their final predictions for all of the teams in the upcoming season. The final predictions for the records and where they will land in the standings. So today what we're going to be doing is taking a look at that and then saying whether or not I think the teams will be over so they do better than Bleacher Report expects them to do, or under where they do worse than what Bleacher Report expects them to do. So let's get right into that. Let's start off with the Eastern Conference. Lego. 57-25. That is 4 games better than they were last year. I say they're gonna do over this. They added, of course, Gordon Hayward. They drafted Jason Tatum, and then they got that man Aaron Baines. That's a guaranteed 4 wins just from Aaron Baines. Nah, but for real, those additions, along with the Eastern Conference getting a bit weaker as you go down the list, will help the Boston Celtics have a better record than they had last year, and maybe even more than 57 wins. They got the Cleveland Cavaliers finishing with the exact same record. I say this is under. I don't think the Cavs are gonna reach 51 wins again, just because they had to trade Kyrie Irving now. If not for that, I would say they would be over, as they would win more games because they picked up Derrick Rose. But since they had to trade Irving and they're looking for young players in exchange for Irving, meaning that they're gonna get slightly worse, I can't see them being as good during the regular season as they were last year, so I gotta go under. That being said, it's not a huge under. I expect maybe a game or 2 difference from last year. Over. Let's not forget here, they would have had a better record than this last year had they not gotten off to that slow start. They still finished with 49 wins last year, and now Bleacher Report expects them to win 50 games, but I think it's gonna be more than that. I can see them winning around 53-ish games this year. Can I just say the same? Is that an option? Because I honestly think 49 wins is reasonable for the Milwaukee Bucks. It's either going to be over by 1 or under by 1. They will win 50 games and be over, or win 48 games and be under. So I'm going to boil it down to this. It's going to come down to Jabari Parker. If he comes back and is the same Jabari Parker that he was before he got injured last year, and he can stay healthy, I'm going over. The Bucks will win at least 50 games. If not, if he regressed a little or can't stay healthy again, then I'm going to say under. They will win less than 48 games, but for the most part, I think this is pretty accurate. That's a pretty big dip up from last year. 4 games worse. They did lose a little bit in PJ Tucker and Patrick Patterson. That will hurt their bench depth by a little. Last year they were tied for the Cavs in the second team in the East with 51 wins, and you have to consider that they weren't healthy last year. DeMar DeRozan was out for like 8 games during the beginning of the season, and then you had Kyle Lowry missing basically the entire second half of the season. So if not for that, then their record probably would have been better than 51 wins last year. So I'm going to say over. I think they will win more than 47 games. Maybe they won't win 51 again, so maybe it'll be under from what they actually won last year, but I think they'll be better than a 47 win team. This is a huge wild card. This could either be accurate or way off. The Miami Heat were, of course, one of the more interesting stories in the NBA last year, where they started off the season 11-30 and then went 30-11 the second half of the season, meaning that if they played in the first half like they played in the second half, they could have been a 60-win team, since that would equal out to 60-22. And they're bringing back all of the major pieces that they had last year. And then on top of that, Justice Winslow will also be healthy, so we'll get to see what he adds to the team. And then they added Kelly Olynyk too. Not the biggest splash in the offseason, but he will help since they were weak at the 4 spot. So I'm going to say over. I I said in a previous video that this is a team that could surprise some people this upcoming season. Surprise them by being better than they were last year, and 43 and 39 is a lot better than they were last year. And I'm gonna say it for this one. I'm gonna say it. This is exactly what I predict the Charlotte Hornets to do. I don't see them being any worse, and I don't really see them being much better than this either. I think 43 and 39 is really reasonable, so I gotta say this is exactly pretty much my prediction. Neither over or under. Before I say anything, I just like to point out the fact that the Philadelphia 76ers apparently have a higher chance of winning the NBA championship next year than the Toronto Raptors. So if you're a Raptors fan, you might feel some type of way about that. But that also shows us how people are feeling about the Sixers this year. No one knows what to expect from this team. They could be extremely good next year. But the thing is, only one other big three players have even played a single NBA game yet. And that player, of course, was Joel Embiid, who hasn't even played a total of a half a season's worth of games since he's been in the league for the past 3 years. They could be really good, or they could not be so good just yet. I think it all comes down to Joel Embiid. To me, he is their most important player next year. If he can stay healthy, then they can for sure win at least 41 games. So I'm saying over if he stays healthy, since if you think about it, half of the Sixers wins came last year when Joel Embiid was playing and he was putting up those historic numbers in limited minutes. But if he can't stay healthy for some reason, then I'm going to say under. They will not win 41 games. The amount of disrespect is insane. I'm just letting you guys know right now, this is over. The Pistons will be an above 500 team next year. If you don't believe me, just watch. You can come back when the season's over this video and comment down how wrong you were. This is gonna be an under. I said over for a bunch of the teams at the top. I think there's gonna be a huge drop off after 9 in the Eastern Conference this year. The first 9 teams will be hovering around 500. However, the next ones will be around the low 30s to 20. And the Orlando Magic, they have some young talent on that team, but they're still a team that really doesn't have much of an identity. They're still trying to figure out who they are. So for that reason, I'm going to say under. It's going to be a lot of fun to see what D'Angelo Russell and the rest of the Brooklyn Nets can do this year, and I do think they will be better than they were last year. However, I once again have to say under. They will be better, but I don't see them winning extra 10 games than they won last year, especially since they don't have Brook Lopez anymore, who was responsible for a bunch of those wins that they did have last year. We're going to be seeing a lot of the Miles Turner, Victor Oladipo pick and roll this season, and it's going to be a lot of fun to see. Over. Here's why. Miles Turner and Victor Oladipo are 2 of the leading players to have breakout season next year. I can see both of them having a breakout season this year, and if that happens, they won't be a playoff team or anything, but I can see them winning around 35 games, which is more than what Bleacher Report predicted. This team really depends on what happens to Carmelo Anthony. If Carmelo Anthony stays and plays the entire season with the New York Knicks this year, I definitely have to say over, just because I can't see Melo not winning at least 30 games along with Porzingis. However, if they trade Melo for draft picks or just some more young players, then I will say under, because this will be a transition year for the New York Knicks where they give the ball to Porzingis and let him be the main focal point of the team for the first time in his career. Under if that happens, and over if Carmelo stays. I can't remember the last time I saw a Hawks team with this record attached to their name. It's about to be a rough season to be a Hawks fan. You guys got Dennis Schroeder, and he's gonna be great, but then you look at the rest of the team, and you can't really even see who their starting 5 is going to be outside of Schroeder. Under, I think 24 games might actually be the best case scenario for the Atlanta Hawks. This has got to be one of the scariest teams to be a fan of in the NBA. All Chicago Bulls fans are doing is praying, because all the players that they got this summer requires some prayer. Chris Dunn, Zach LaVine, and Lauri Markkanen. Zach LaVine is, of course, the most sure thing out of them. We all expect Zach LaVine to come back and still be able to average at least 20 points per game. But then with Lauri Markkanen and especially Chris Dunn, it's more of a let's just hope that they can become something special in the NBA. Under, but for the better of the Chicago Bulls, since they need to be the worst team in the NBA for the betterment of the franchise going forward. But that's it for the East. Now let's move on to the West. Over. I don't see why the Golden State Warriors can't have another 70 win season this year. 69 wins is still 2 more than they had last year, but the team improved on paper and their chemistry is going to be even better than it was last year. The only reason I can see this team not winning 70 games again is if they decide to rest their players a lot. Would this be the first ever 60-win season for the Rockets in franchise history? I think it would, and I think if that's the case, then it is going to happen this year. James Harden single-handedly led the Rockets to 55 wins last year, and now with Chris Paul too, oh yeah, you can for sure see them winning 60 games. Over or under though, it's gonna come down to whether or not they can trade for Carmelo Anthony. If they trade for Melo, I'm saying over, they'll win more than 60 games. If not, it's kind of like a wash, or they'll win one less game. They'll be like a 59-win team, so I'll say under, I guess. But right now, 60 wins sounds about right. What is this? What is this? They'll lose 7 more games than they lost last year? I don't see how. Have you guys heard of Kawhi Leonard? The man is a beast, and he's only gonna be better next year. He comes back significantly better every single year. Can you imagine how good he's gonna be next year? And you think with that type of improvement, the Spurs are gonna lose 7 less games? They lost Jonathan Simmons, all right, that does hurt a bit, but then they added Rudy Gay too. Other than that, the whole team is still the same. Definitely, probably the easiest over of this video. Over again, Paul George already makes his team significantly better. Granted, this win total is better than it was from last year, but I don't think it's good enough. They got Paul George, and then they also added Patrick Patterson, who will help them with their three-point shooting. They were a terrible three-point shooting last year. Both those guys will help that. Same thing for Jameer Nelson coming off the bench too. He will be a competent backup for Russell Westbrook, something they haven't had since Reggie Jackson. I can see them winning around 53 games. This one all depends. I say 48 wins is about the worst we can expect from the Minnesota Timberwolves this year. However, if Karl Anthony Towns can take another huge leap in his game this year, they could be much better and win more than 48 games, so I'm going to have to say over. Only a 6-game drop off from last year, huh? Jazz might not be as bad as people expect them to be, but I do think they'll be a little bit worse than what Bleacher Report expects them to be. They'll be a great defensive team, no doubt, but the thing is, they just lost 20 to 25 points per night on offense. Losing Gordon Hayward is going to hurt a lot. I don't know who they're gonna give the ball to just when they need a quick score. They still have Joe Johnson, but he is what, like 35, 36 years old at this point? I'm gonna have to say under. Losing Gordon Hayward is going to hurt, but they will still be in the playoff picture. Paul Millsap said the Nuggets are gonna win 60 games this year. He said this Nuggets team is better than the Atlanta Hawks team back in 2015 when they won 60 games. And I think that is possible. They might be better overall than that Hawks team was, but that doesn't mean that they will win 60 games. The Hawks play in the Eastern Conference. You guys are in the Western Conference. So I don't see them winning 60, but at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if they won more than 44, so I'm saying over. This one is extremely hard to say. The Clippers are about to be a much different team than they have been for the past 6 or 7 years. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, we don't know yet. It all comes down to a few things: how good Milos Teodosic is, and if Blake Griffin and Danilo Gallinari can stay healthy for the entire season. All those things pan out, then they could post a better record than this. If not, then I can see them doing a little bit worse, maybe around 41 wins, a 500 team. So I'm going to say under. The year the Memphis Grizzlies are finally going to miss the playoffs. So I gotta say under. I don't think they'll win 41 games next year. I think they'll win more like 39 or 38. They lost Zach Randolph and Vince Carter. Those two things hurt. Zach Randolph was like their leading scorer off the bench. Vince Carter was one of their best and only three-point shooters. Mike Conley and Marc Gasol will still be good enough to beat some teams by themselves, but with the rest of the West getting better, it's only gonna make it harder for them to win some of those games that they won last year. This is another one of those things where I think they could be much better than this, but this is about the worst they could be. Anthony Davis has had worse rosters than this and still managed to get into the playoffs, and they have him outside the playoff picture right now. And I just find it hard to believe that a team that has DeMarcus Cousins and Anthony Davis, two of the best big men in the NBA for a full season on it, can't win at least 41 games. So I have to kind of say over just because of those two players alone. I hope Damian Lillard sees this. He's a guy that loves to be counted out. This isn't even just counting him out. This is not counting the Portland Trail Blazers at all. 37 wins for the Blazers. Am I missing something, or didn't they get much better once they acquired Jusuf Nurkic last year? It's over. The Mavericks are one of the teams that are going to be a good kind of bad next year. They'll be bad, but it'll be good to watch them be bad because of Dennis Smith Jr. They're just going to give that kid the ball and let him try and run the team. However, that's not going to result in too many wins. And with the rest of the West getting much tougher, I say this is under, but it won't be under by that much. pretty much the same boat as the Dallas Mavericks. Kings will actually be a really fun team to watch next year, but I wouldn't watch them if you're expecting them to win a lot of games. They're a very young team in the Western Conference. I think it'll be under by just a game or two. LeVar and Lonzo both think that this team is going to make the playoffs next year. Do I share the same beliefs? No, but I will say this, I think they'll be better than 29 wins. Lonzo Ball is one of the most polarizing rookies the NBA has seen in quite some time. The kid looks really, really good. On the top of that, Magic Johnson expects huge growth from Brandon Ingram. He said he wants Ingram to average 20 points per game. And then they also added Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Brook Lopez as well. Both guys that can come in and contribute immediately. So I can see them being better than the 29 win team. Over, but no playoff. Over. I think they're going to be bad, but I don't think they're going to be worse than they were last year. I don't even see how that's possible. They added Josh Jackson, so that automatically helps their defense a lot. And then you expect growth from Devin Booker and the rest of the young guys. Look, they're going to be a bad team, but they won't be worse than they were last year, so it's over. That's it. Those are the predictions for all 30 NBA teams next year, and that's going to lead us to the question of the day. What teams do you guys think are going to do better than this, and what teams do you guys think are going to do worse than what they are expected? Let me know down in the comment section below. But now let's take a look at what you guys said in yesterday's video. And yesterday I asked you guys whether or not you see James Harden finally winning the MVP this upcoming year, and here is what you said. Kawhi will win. Simple as that. I don't think James Harden will win the MVP because he has Chris Paul on his team. It's not bad for the team, but it's bad for Harden. Look at how Kawhi has improved each season. This season, I think he'll work on his passing and dribbling. I definitely think that James Harden will win MVP. I think the fact that he didn't win last season will drive him to be a monster on the court. You have already seen how far he has come. Imagine him by the end of the season. It's scary. Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, and a few people said Giannis Antetokounmpo. In my mind, those are the three people that have the best chance to win it as well. As for the whole thing about Chris Paul lowering James Harden's MVP chances, I don't think that's necessarily true. If you look at like LeBron James, he was winning MVP of course before he went to Miami, but then he teamed up in Miami with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh and still was winning MVP. Why? Because the team was doing crazy things. The team was winning a lot. I think that could be the same thing for James Harden. If the Rockets have like some remarkable season, James Harden very well could win MVP still. Like always though, don't forget to leave your answer for today's question of the day down in the comment section below. But other than that, thank you once again for watching the video. Hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more daily NBA videos. Until tomorrow, keep getting the bucks, Team STC, and I'm out of here. Peace!